Hello and welcome to Spectrum News at 9. My name is Xavier Robert, coming to you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom. Let's take a look at the headlines. Federal government suspends planned removal of fuel subsidy. Governors hold valedictory NAC in honor of Osibanjo. Plus, NATO chief says allies have delivered almost all promised combat vehicles to Ukraine. Details of these stories and more in a moment. We begin tonight with a report that the federal government has suspended plans to remove fuel subsidy by June this year. Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning Zainab Ahmed gave the indication today shortly after the National Economic Council NEC meeting chaired by Vice President Osibanjo. She said the NEC, which comprises state governors, deliberated on the issue extensively and came to the conclusion that it will not be wise to remove subsidy as soon as the new administration is trying to settle down to governance. She also noted that the existing committee that has been discussing the fuel subsidy issue needed to be expanded to enable more input from concerned Nigerians. She specifically said they needed to be more interface with the Nigeria Labour Congress NLC and more engagement with the Petroleum Marketers Association, among others. In another development, the Federal Executive Council has approved Action Plan 2020 to 2026 with the aim of advancing Nigeria's position in the observance of international best practices of human rights. The Attorney General of the Federation AGF government has observed human rights in its dealings with Nigerians like the Buhari administration, noting that the approval was based on the memorandum of a policy relating to human rights, which he presented to the council. The AGF recalled that 130 million naira was awarded to the family of Apo 6 at the court, even though the case predated the administration. In a separate development of Niger Delta Affairs, which has repositioned the Commission for Positive and Sustainable Development of the Niger Delta region. The Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, Umana, gave this commendation while declaring open the NDDC PPP Summit holding in Lagos on behalf of the Vice President Osibanjo. According to the Minister, the President's directive to reform the NDDC was timely, as it has repositioned the Commission to be transparent, accountable, and to run on the template of global best practices in public governance, while harping on an interference. Away from that, the Nigerian government has given an update on the movement of students from Sudan. The chairman of the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, NIDCOM Abike Dabiri Erowa, disclosed that the stranded students have started moving. According to a viral video, the buses conveying Nigerian students and non-students out of Sudan were stopped in the middle of the Sahara Desert. A voice narrowment, Dabiri said the issues have been resolved and the buses started moving. Elsewhere, the chairman of the Nigeria Governors Forum and governor of Sokoto State, Aminu Tambuwal, has said that governors of the 36 states of the Federation have resolved to meet with President Muhammadu Buhari over the new revenue draft presented to him by, according to the outgoing governor, is to plead with the commander-in-chief to present the new draft formula to the National Assembly before May 29, 2023, when a new government will take over the reins of power. Tambuwal disclosed this at a meeting of the 36 state governors under the aegis of the Nigeria Governors Forum in Abuja. According to him, the forum also discussed the guidelines on financial regulations set by the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Auspices of Nigeria Governors Forum today held a valedictory session at the Presidential Villa Abuja, where they eulogized the outgoing Vice President Osibanjo. Osibanjo chaired the National Economic Council NEC meetings for 8 years, where far-reaching resolutions were taken to improve governance both at the state and federal level. Briefing State House correspondents on how the valedictory session went. Bauchi State Governor Bala Mohammed said members of the NEC were full of praises for the outgoing Vice President in his future endeavors.
Calls to comment on the work of the National Economic Council and Your Excellencies the Governors. Calls to comment on the work of the National Economic Council and advising, especially when we've had difficult decisions to make. Just today we talked again about the questions around subsidy removal. There were also situations where the National Economic Council have had to advise on very many matters concerning the economy of the country. And your advice has always been objective. Your advice has always been in the overall interest of the country. And I must say that in very many ways, the National Economic Council in the past few years, from 2015 to now, has demonstrated that our country has quality leadership, and that all across our country, all across our nation, political leadership has shown in very many ways the way our decisions, the unity of our.
Away from that now, the Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, today appeared before the House of Representatives Ad Hoc Committee investigating the alleged loss of over $2.4 billion in unremitted oil revenue. The revenues from the illegal sale of 48 million barrels of crude oil export from 2014 till date. Recall that last Thursday, the chairman of the committee, Mark Beeler, announced that Malami will face the lawmakers on April 27. He said the committee obtained reports that Malami received funds from outside the country through the whistleblower policy but did not remit it to the Federation account. The lawmaker also said the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab. Moving on now to the judiciary, where the Supreme Court today adjourned the hearing of Nnamdi Kanu, leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, to May 11. The decision of the Supreme Court was disclosed in a tweet by Kanu's special counsel Aloy Ejimako. According to reports, the Apex Court granted leave to the federal government to bring 9 new grounds of appeal against the release of pro-Biafra agitator Nnamdi Kanu. Recall that the court had earlier fixed the hearing for today. The successionist had on November 3, 2022, filed an appeal at the Supreme Court against the Court of Appeals ruling halting his release from the DSS custody. Kalu appealed against the 28th October 2022 decision of the Court of Appeal, which stayed the execution of its earlier order acquitting him of all charges and directing his release from the custody of the secret police. Still from the judiciary, in a ruling today, Justice Yang Kuo held, among others, that the application was without merit and that the applicant failed to provide sufficient materials to move the court to exercise its discretion in his favor. Justice Kuo noted that the defendant failed to rebut the prosecution's claim that there was a likelihood of him committing more offenses. Meanwhile, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has appealed a ruling that struck out its suit seeking the forfeiture of 14 properties and the sum of 400 million naira linked to Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello. EFCC counsel Rotimio Yedekwo filed the notice of appeal on April 26, hours after the Justice Nicholas Owebo of the Federal High Court, Lagos, struck out the order of interim forfeiture it granted the anti-graft agency on February 22. The judge upheld Bello's argument, among others, that he was covered by immunity from prosecution under the 1999 Constitution. Thus, the EFCC could not seize, even temporarily, the cash and property. Meanwhile, the Executive Chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, Abdul Rashid Bauer, has reiterated the Commission's readiness to revoke the registration of any NGO operating in the region found to have a link with any terrorist group. Bauer disclosed this while speaking at the opening of a one-day workshop on economic and financial crime report. Oshodi Johnson, the EFCC helmsman, said Section 56 of the Terrorism Act also empowers the Special Control Unit against money laundering, which is now domiciled in the EFCC, to refuse or revoke the registration of any NGO linked to terrorist groups. Meanwhile, he did not say if the Commission has made any such revocation, but cited the case of using her NGO for fraudulent purposes. Now, in education, the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board (JAM) has said about 947,000 candidates sat for the 2023 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination (UTME) within the last 2 days. The figure was disclosed by JAM spokesman Fabian Benjamin after monitoring the ongoing UTME alongside the registrar of the board, Professor Ishaq Oloyede, today in Abuja, stressing that everybody who registered would be allowed to write the examination. JAM said it has resolved the technical hitches experienced on the first day of UTME in some centers across the country. In a statement he signed, Benjamin said the 2023 UTME was the best examination conducted over a period of time. Now to politics, where the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party (PDP), Atiku Abubakar, has said the flag bearer for the All Progressives Congress (APC) has been able to run for the office of the President of Nigeria since 1993 without any controversy because he is free from drugs and identity scandals, unlike the President-elect Ahmed Bola Tinubu, as he alleged. Meanwhile, the former Vice President's comments were contained in a response to Tinubu's and APC's reply regarding his petition challenging the process and the outcome of the February 25 presidential election. So in politics now, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party (LP), Peter Obi, has accused the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) of being partial. The LP candidate was replying a preliminary objection filed by INEC at the tribunal, which appeared to be in support of the candidate of the All Progressives Congress (APC), now the President-elect Bola Tinubu. In the case before the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal, to place itself in a place of neutrality, remain fair and focused. More electoral matters now, where the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) today presented certificates of return to 3 Imo House of Assembly members-elect. The certificate presentation was sequel to the April 15 supplementary polls conducted in 3 local government areas where elections were earlier declared inconclusive. The Assembly members-elect are Nkem Otuibe, Ahiazum Bise (APC), Vitalis Azodo, Idiato South Accord, and Modestus Osakwe Isu (PDP). Presenting the certificates to the trial, the resident electoral commissioner for Imo, Professor Sylvia Agu, congratulated them, noting that their victory was by the grace of God. Meanwhile, the Adamawa state government has requested the State Police Command to initiate an investigation into the crisis that engulfed the state following the illegal declaration of 15. In a statement by the Chief Press Secretary Humwashi Wonusiko, signaling the intent of the state government to prosecute all those behind the illegal declaration of governorship candidate APC's Venani, the state government said the Attorney General and Commissioner of Justice for the state has written the Commissioner of Police to immediately commence investigations for possible prosecution of all those found culpable in the saga that played out in the polls. Recall that controversy ensued when the Adamawa State Resident Electoral Commissioner Hudu Yunusa Ari, in the early hours of April 16, sneaked into the state governorship collation center to declare Benani election in the state. Mohammed Meli declared the candidate of the People's Democratic Party and incumbent Governor Amadou Fintiri the winner of the governorship election. In another development, the Inspector General of Police, Usman Baba, has ordered the deployment of 12 commissioners of police to various state commands across the country. This follows the approval of Baba's recommendation by the Police Service Commission for the posting of the CPs to various state commands. The IG also tasked the senior police officers to proceed immediately to their respective duty posts, take charge of the affairs of their offices, and execute the policing agenda of the MPF's leadership. Back here, the Executive Secretary of the Akwa Ibom State Primary Health Care Development Agency, Dr. Eno Atta, has called on parents in the state to make available the week of April, with the aim of highlighting the collective action needed to protect people from vaccine-preventable diseases. Speaking with Spectrum Television on this year's theme, Catch Up, she said the primary health care is accelerating rapid progress to get back on track in ensuring that more than 80% of people, particularly children, are protected from preventable diseases. The Executive Secretary added that the exercise is free and would continue even after the immunization week.
It's just a reminder of how effective that has been and then what we can do going forward. So the theme for this year is Catch Up and targeted at this. Please, when it comes to your vaccinations and immunizations, please go out there, avail yourself of what is there for you at the primary healthcare facilities. Once the vaccines are there, please go and take your vaccinations, and they're free.
Still to come in the news. U.S. Q1 GDP growth misses forecasts. Do stay with us.
Business exists. only to meet the needs of the people. But there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTimes DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Good morning, Nigeria. Year after year, they have informed, educated, and entertained us. When you needed information, knowledge, or an escape.
From generation to generation, the Nigerian broadcasting industry has worked tirelessly to serve you.
And now, this service will finally be recognized.
Come May 17th this year, broadcasters all over Nigeria will gather at a hotel and suites for the maiden edition of the Nigerian Broadcasting Awards, an award ceremony set to reward hard work and excellence in the broadcast media. Voting starts on 20th April and ends on 4th May 2023. Visit www.tnbawards.ng to vote now. They've served and they're still serving. It's time we say thank you. This award is organized by the Broadcasting Organizations of Nigeria, Bonn.
trying to unfreeze the assets of Rwanda genocide suspect Felicien Kabuga in Kenya. The Kenya Anti-Corruption Court rejected Kabuga's son, Jimyuremyi Donatian's plea to allow his aged mother access rent from the property in the capital, Nairobi. The court affirmed similar orders issued by a lower court 15 years ago. The case filed in 2008 sought to have Kabuga's property forfeited and its proceeds used to compensate genocide victims and their families at the time. Kabuga was a fugitive. According to reports, Kabuga's wife, in her submissions filed before the court, had argued that Kabuga used the rent collected from the house to evade arrest. It would be recalled that Kabuga, one of the key suspects of the 1994 Rwandan genocide, was arrested in France in 2020 after evading capture for about 26 years. Meanwhile, Kenya, country's highest profile pastors, would face charges over the mass killing of his followers just days after the discovery of dozens of bodies linked to another church. Speaking to newsmen, Interior Minister Kithure Kindiki said Ezekiel Odero, the head of the New Life Prayer Center, that the said church has been shut down and over 100 people who were holed up at the premises have been evacuated and will be required to record statements. Meanwhile, Odero's arrest comes on the heels of an ongoing investigation into Paul Mackenzie Ntenge, the cult leader accused of the deaths of 98 people linked to his church. Still in Africa, the Sudanese army has expressed its willingness to extend a 3-day ceasefire that is due to expire today, as diplomats step up talks to end the fighting between forces loyal to rival military generals. The outbreak of violence has reportedly left more than 400 people dead and forced tens of thousands to flee the country. Sudan's Army Chief General Abdel al-Burhan said the extension follows an initial proposal from the Regional African Bloc Intergovernmental Authority on Development. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said he spoke to the African Union Commission Chairperson Musa. To Ghana now, where authorities have deactivated 6.1 million mobile SIM cards that have not been registered with the communication regulator. According to the National Communications Authority (NCA), the deactivated cards belong to the NCA, Joe Anokie, has said there were approximately 11 million active but unregistered subscribers who will be deactivated from networks after the 31st May deadline. He said so far, more than 25 million SIM cards have been fully registered across the country. Meanwhile, the registration is part of the efforts by the NCA to curb fraudulent activities associated with the use of SIM cards in the country. Said today, as at least one person was killed in a Russian missile strike on an apartment block in the southern city of Mykolaiv. Ukraine's Prime Minister said he asked Pope Francis during a private Vatican audience today to help facilitate the return of Ukrainian children who were forcibly taken to Russia. Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal briefing reporters on his half-hour audience with the Pontiff said he also invited Francis to come to Ukraine.
Led by the United States, NATO allies and partners have provided unprecedented support to Ukraine. More than 98% of the combat vehicles promised to Ukraine have already been delivered. That means vast amounts of ammunition. In total, we have trained and equipped more than 9 new Ukrainian armored brigades. This will put Ukraine in a strong position to continue to retake occupied territory. Overall, through the...
Still on the foreign scene now, Britain's High Court ruled today that part of a strike by thousands of nurses planned for next week is illegal handing a small victory to the government in its bitter dispute with public sector unions. The court said a 6-month strike mandate given to the Royal College of Nursing by a member's vote expires at midnight on Monday, and not as the union argued the following day. The union had planned to walk out for 48 hours starting 8 p.m. on Sunday. For the first time, the walkout will include nurses working in intensive care, emergency.
The courts will decide the outcome for today. But what I would say is that Steve Barclay may get a legal win today. But what he has done is he has lost the public and he has certainly lost nursing. So he has a short-term gain, but long-term, there's no trust whatsoever from any of our nursing staff now in this government, and certainly the public. If you look at what the public are saying, we are the most trusted profession and we're being dragged through the courts by the least trusted group of people in England. And I want that the claps of this government would turn to slaps, and slaps in the courthouse very quickly. This is no way to treat our nursing staff, the people you see standing here today, and any other country.
In the meantime, Conservative politician Petteri Orpo, who won Finland's April general election, said today he plans to form a coalition government that includes the far-right runner-up Finns party. The Finns' inclusion in negotiations raises the possibility the anti-immigration party, which took just two between Orpo's National Coalition Party, the Finns Party, the Swedish People's Party, and the Christian Democrats. Meanwhile, the negotiations, which typically take around a month, are expected to be difficult, as the Finns Party's hard line on immigration and skepticism towards Finland's climate targets has caused friction among the right-wing parties. The policies of the Finns Party, emphasizing the importance of attracting labor migrants to Finland. Meanwhile, an unusually early heatwave and drought hit Spain is set to peak today and tomorrow, with temperatures expected to break April records in the south of the country. Reports say since Monday, Spain has been enveloped by a mass of warm, dry air from North Africa that has driven up temperatures to levels normally seen in summer and exceptionally high for so far this year, compared to 17,000 hectares in the same period last year. Meanwhile, experts say parts of Spain are the driest in 1,000 years, with a prolonged drought depleting reservoirs to half of their normal capacity. Elsewhere, Iran seized a US-bound oil tanker off Oman today, saying it had crashed into an Iranian vessel, leaving 2 crew missing, the latest disruptive incident in the crucial but troubled waterway. Meanwhile, the US Navy demanded the immediate release of the Marshall Islands flagged tanker, saying it was transiting international waters in the Gulf of Oman and slamming Iran's continued harassment of vessels. According to reports, it is one of the incidents since 2018 when then US President Donald Trump pulled out of a nuclear agreement and reimposed crippling sanctions on Iran, sending tensions soaring. The latest flare-up comes only days after Tehran's Western rivals toughened sanctions on Iran. Regional Ukraine sparked a rally around the flag effect in Lithuania as the tiny Baltic state offered refuge to dissidents fleeing violence and oppression in neighboring Belarus and Russia. But new restrictions on migrants threaten Lithuania's liberal values. Ukrainian flags and colorful war-themed murals have sprung up in almost every neighborhood in the Lithuanian capital of Vilnius, testimony to an indomitable spirit of resistance against a common enemy. Ordinary citizens were particularly active, organizing crowdfunding campaigns to buy military equipment and hosting refugees from Ukraine. The sympathy for Ukraine also extended to government when, for instance, the Lithuanian parliament on April 6 unanimously approved a resolution proposing an invitation to Ukraine to join NATO. Away from that, parents in Pakistan are now putting padlocks on their late doors, and some social media users, including activists and authors, have raised the matter today. Meanwhile, Harris Sultan, an ex-Muslim atheist activist and the author of the book The Curse of God, Why I Left Islam, blamed hardline Islamist ideology for such depraved acts. said Pakistan has created such a horny, sexually frustrated society that people are now putting padlocks on the graves of their daughters to prevent them from getting raped. And now it's time for the latest business and stock market stories. Here is Blyden. Okay.
Thank you, Xavier Roberts. Good evening. This is Business News. My name is Blyden Ukem. In the news, the U.S. economy grew by an annualized 1.1% in the first quarter, slowing from a 2.6% expansion in the previous period and missing market expectations of a 2% growth. It was the weakest pace of expansion since the second quarter of 2022, as business investment growth slowed down, inventories declined, and rising interest rates continue. The Turkish lira weakened past 19.4 per US dollar at the end of April, extending its record low amid overloosed monetary policy, current account imbalances, and concerns regarding the presidential election in May. After Turkey's earthquake, the TCMB held its interest rate steady at 8.5% for a second time in its April meeting, following the 50 basis point cut in February. The move added to a total of 10.5 percentage points in rate cuts since September 2021, pushing the cut next month could end the central bank's liraization policies and pressure the lira, according to reports. On the other hand, should President Erdogan remain in office, consensus points to the disorderly depreciation of the currency. To the Nigerian Exchange Limited report. Tony Elumelu spent over 23 billion naira to tighten his control in transnational corporation Transcorp after Femi Otadala displaced him as the single largest majority investor in the firm, stake in Transcorp. The share acquisition by Otadala saw him overtake Elumelu, who owned a 2.06% stake at the time and also serves as chairman at Transcorp. In response, Elumelu acquired 9.69 billion shares through his investment company HH Capital Limited, which previously held 200 above his previous 2.06% stake. This increased his stake above the 5.52% held by Otadala, according to reports. It's time for the Nigerian stock market report. The bulls are still on ground. Regarding the performance of market indices, 52,235.88 points. A total of 2.334 billion shares in 6,958 deals, corresponding to a market value of 17.618 billion naira, were traded. Compared with the previous trading day, today's data shows 58% current market capitalization of the Nigerian Stock Exchange is 28.4 trillion naira in aggregate. 108 listed equities participated in trading, ending with 26 gainers and 18 losers. Honeywell Flour Mill led the gainers with 10% share price appreciation, closing at 3 naira 8 kobo per share. While on the losing side, Bega Paints came out last with an end-of-day price, the highest volume of 1.23 billion traded shares. This is all on Business News. I'm back to Xavier Robert for the other news.
Many thanks, Blyden. Still to come in the news. Carl Edmund loses to... Thanks for staying tuned. Now in health, the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control (NAFDAC) has alerted Nigerians about a suspected substandard cough syrup called Natocode. The cough syrup, which is said to be manufactured by Fraken Group, is reported to have caused the deaths of 6 children under the age of 5 at a health facility in the health district of Fundong in the northwest region of Cameroon. According to the Delegate for Public Health in the Northwest region of Cameroon, the children showed a decrease in kidney function after consuming the suspected substance. Retailers and consumers to exercise caution and vigilance within the supply chain to avoid the importation, distribution, sale, and use of the substandard product. Now, the agency added that members of the public should desist from purchasing medicinal products from unauthorized sources such as roadside vendors and street hawkers, as fake drugs are mostly smuggled into the country from neighboring countries and distributed through such inappropriate. It has recorded 152 deaths from Lassa fever in Nigeria so far this year. In its 15th week Lassa fever situation report, the NCDC said there had been a total of 877 confirmed cases recorded from 26 states and 101 local government areas from January 1 through April 16, 2023. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization says Lassa fever is an acute viral hemorrhagic illness caused by the Lassa virus and is known to be endemic in Benin, Ghana, Guinea, Liberia, Mali, Sierra Leone, Togo. And he won this year after losing to Dominic Thiem in straight sets at the Madrid Open. Edmund, aged 28, has now lost all 6 games on tour in 2023 after Austria's Thiem enjoyed a 6-4, 6-1 first-round win. Reports say the Briton forced 2 break points in each set, but failed to take advantage and was beaten inside 82 minutes. And while former world number 14 Edmund is recovering, the former world number 3 is also coming back from injury and has dropped to 93rd in the rankings. So in sports, New York Knicks center Jericho Sims underwent surgery on his right shoulder, ending his promising second season in the NBA. According to reports, the procedure, done Wednesday and considered successful, will require 5 months of recovery and rehabilitation. Sims, aged 24, is expected to be prepared for the start of training camp in September, according to sources. The Knicks Sunday. He was the 53rd overall pick to the Knicks in the 2021 NBA draft, elevating himself from a 2-way contract to a standard NBA deal in the past season. Meanwhile, Pelé, the nickname of the late football legend, has officially become synonymous with exceptional, incomparable, unique. The Portuguese language Macaulay's dictionary, one of the most popular in Brazil, added Pelé as a new adjective to its online edition. The inclusion came after a campaign by the Pelé Foundation to honor the football star gathered more than 125,000 signatures. It would be recalled that Pelé died in December at the age of 82. The only player spanning 2 decades, he scored a record 1,281 goals with Brazilian club Santos, Brazil's national team, and the New York Cosmos. Now on our entertainment news, longtime U.S. talk show host Jerry Springer, whose program became a symbol of low-brow television with its on-air fights, swearing, and infidelity revelations, has died at the age of 79. According to a family spokesperson, Springer, whose show became an international hit that ran for 27 years, died peacefully at his home in Chicago after a brief illness. Launched in 1991, the Jerry Springer Show began life as an ordinary talk show focusing on social issues and U.S. politics, led by the then mild-mannered lawyer and former politician Springer, who briefly served as the mayor of Cincinnati in 1977. But in an effort to boost ratings, the son of Jewish German immigrants switched things up dramatically after he exposed adultery and other transgressions. Still in entertainment, 2 of the executive producers of Gangs of Lagos have revealed some of the initial titles of the movie. They revealed this in interviews with newsmen. The producers Demi Olubanwo and Adesegun Adetoro said Prime Video's first African original went by various names, including Once Upon a Time in Isaleko. In Olubanwo's words, it was originally called One Test with the Story. Eventually, they landed on the title they had after shooting. Lastly, on entertainment tonight, Afrobeats sensation Davido has announced a 2-week North American tour in support of his chart-topping album Timeless. The megastar took to his Instagram to reveal the tour schedule and announced that tickets will go on sale starting Friday. The highly anticipated tour comes on the heels of the hit 6 cities including Washington, D.C., Houston, Chicago, Boston, and Toronto from July 1 to 15, 2023. And that's all we have for you at this time. Do ensure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtv.ng. You've been watching Spectrum News at 9. My name